Congratulations on getting the Ohio Ordnance Works M2-SLR. Hope you're ready for everybody at your local range to be extremely jealous of you. In this video, we're going to go over the disassembly and reassembly for purposes of lubrication, cleaning, general inspection of this firearm, so you can keep using it for years to come. As always, whenever dealing with a firearm, the first thing we're going to want to do is clear the gun. In order to do that, you go ahead and turn the latch on the top cover towards the front, raise it all the way up, ensure that on the trunnion there's no live rounds, links, anything like that. From there, you'll grasp your charging handle, pull it all the way back to the rear, make sure that your chamber is clear, there's no brass or ammunition inside of the gun. First part we're going to take off of this is going to be the barrel assembly. When you're removing the barrel, there's essentially a locking spring that holds the barrel into place inside of the gun. You need to release tension on the bolt assembly to be able to unscrew it. When you look on the right side of the receiver, you'll see that there's a round cut right here behind the Ohio Ordnance Works logo. As you bring the charging handle back, you will see that there's a little square peg that aligns in that hole. That is the proper position for this barrel to be able to get threaded in or removed. You can either apply manual tension by aligning that peg in the hole or by bringing your charging handle roughly in line with the first rivet on your top plate, or your headspace gauge comes with a little spacer piece that will automatically hold that bolt in the correct position. To use this, you'll raise the top cover, take tension off your bolt assembly, and you'll insert this so that the beveled cut points towards the inside of the gun, like so. Slowly release the bolt. We'll then hold it in the correct position to remove the barrel. From there, counterclockwise, grab your barrel, unscrew it until it can pull out the front. Set it aside. From there, we're going to go ahead and remove this spacer piece. Next part we're going to remove is the back plate or your spade grip assembly. You'll see that there are two different latches on the bottom of this. One is a locking latch, the other is the actual latch with which to remove this. Your spade grip comes up off the top of the gun. You'll notice if I depress the removal latch, the back plate does not come off. You'll need to pull out the locking latch, then press up on the main latch. Your entire back plate will slide off. From there, you're going to want to remove the return spring. In order to do that, simply grab the back of the return spring, pull it towards the middle of the gun. You'll see that this little peg aligns in a hole there that retains it. From there, simply just pull it out the back of the gun. Next thing we're going to have to remove is the bolt stud. Basically, that connects the bolt to your retracting bracket or your charging handle. It's this little round piece right there. Best way I found to do that is use your extractor arm to slightly pull the bolt back. Then you'll see on the actual plate of the receiver, there's a small round cut on both sides. That's where you're going to remove this pin from. So it's simply a matter of aligning that pin in the cut, removing it, making sure you don't lose it. Common trick I see a lot of people do, simply just store the plate inside of the hole of your, or store your pin into your back plate assembly. Next thing we're going to have to remove is all the internals of the gun. And to do this, you're going to need either a punch, a cleaning rod, something rigid that you can use to depress right inside of this hole. There's a little leaf spring that kind of holds everything together. So that's going to have to get depressed at the same time you're pulling the internals out. Best way I've found to do it is go ahead, get that depressed, then using your fingers up here at the front of the barrel extension, push everything back until that comes out. From there, making sure you're keeping hand on both the bolt and the buffer housing. Go ahead, remove all the internals. Next part we're going to remove off the receiver is going to be your trigger bar. To remove your trigger bar, on the left side of the receiver, you'll see this little latch right here. You want to lift up on that, turn it clockwise, 90 degrees until it's vertical. Reach inside on the back, grab hold of the trigger bar, which is sitting right up here. and pull this pin out. Your trigger bar will then slide out the back, comes free. Next, we're going to disassemble the internals of the gun. Internals are comprised mainly of three parts: the bolt assembly, the barrel extension, and the buffer assembly. To remove the bolt, all you need to do is slide it backwards off the barrel extension. To remove the barrel extension off of the buffer housing, you're going to want to take these two teeth right here, which is your accelerator, push them forward until it separates. From there, you'll take your buffer housing, grab the buffer from the rear, pull straight out. You can also remove the accelerator from the buffer housing simply by using a punch or a cleaning rod to remove this spring pin. On your barrel extension, the only removable part on this is going to be your breech lock. Same thing as your accelerator, it's held in by a single spring pin. When you remove the pin, make sure you keep a finger underneath it so it doesn't fall. Your breech lock comes out. Next, we're going to disassemble the bolt assembly. First thing we're going to remove is this extractor arm. In order to do that, all you need to do is raise it 90 degrees and pull off from the side. It comes right off. Next, you want to take your cocking lever, which is right here, move it all the way to the rear, and then you're going to take your punch or your cleaning rod, you're going to press on the sear, which is this little piece sticking up right here. That'll actually fire it, and you'll see the firing pin sticking out of the front. Right there, hear the click, your firing pin is protruding. From there, we're going to remove this pin right here, which is your retaining pin for the cocking lever. To do that, you take your punch or your cleaning rod, push on this side of the pin. Pin comes out. Next comes your cocking lever. We're going to use the cocking lever to remove the accelerator lock stop, which is right here. You'll see there's a tiny little notch right here towards the back. You're going to use your cocking lever inside of that notch and pull it towards the middle of the bolt until it disengages, like that. Your cocking lever underneath it to raise it up. And then you're going to pull rearwards and off to the right to remove your accelerator stop lock. Once you've removed your accelerator stop lock, we're going to go ahead and remove the sear and the sear spring. Do that, simply lift up on the sear and it comes right out. And then in this little pocket down here will be your sear spring, which you want to make sure you don't lose. Best way I've found to not lose this and to make it easier to reinstall into the gun or into your bolt, I'm going to be actually hooking the sear spring onto your cocking lever. From there, using your punch or your cleaning rod, you're going to come up here and we're going to actually push down on the accelerator stop, which is a little nub sitting right on top that your lock was hooked onto in the front. Press on that. You'll see it starts to protrude out of the bottom of the bolt. Go ahead and pull it all the way out. From there, we'll remove the firing pin assembly, which is as simple as just tilting the bolt rearwards. From there, you'll have your firing pin and your firing pin extension. That concludes the disassembly of the M2-SLR. For lubrication of the M2-SLR, you want to apply a light coat of oil to all parts, primarily where you'd like to focus on these guide rails on the bolt on both sides, as well as these two cuts on the bottom of your barrel extension and the cut for your breech lock. For lubrication on the receiver, you want to make sure that you lubricate your feed slide assembly right here, as well as this feed lever up top. Now we're going to go into the reassembly of all the internal components, starting with the bolt. Best way I've found to do this, have the bolt sitting in front of you, rear towards you, front of the bolt facing away. You want to take your firing pin extension. You'll see where the cut is, where the back of the firing pin sits. Have that held. Take your firing pin, set it right into that cut of the firing pin extension. You're then going to take this to the back of the bolt, slide it in just like so, all the way forward. From there, you're going to take your accelerator stop. Now you'll see on this is a longer beveled cut edge and a short edge. That longer edge with the bevel is going to go towards the front of the bolt. With the bolt upside down, you'll see this little gap where the spring is from your firing pin extension. You'll take your accelerator lock, place that just behind that spring. It'll be sitting kind of at an angle backwards like that. Start to press it down, push forward. It should lock right into place, completely flush with the bottom of the bolt. From there, we're going to go ahead and reinstall the sear and the sear spring. You need to make sure when you're installing the sear spring that it's resting in the pocket of the sear and the corresponding pocket in the bottom of the bolt. Once it's all together, you're going to want to make sure to look at it and make sure the spring's not leaning one direction or the other. Otherwise, it could damage the spring. So, with the spring hooked onto the front of the cocking lever, go ahead and place it into the pocket of the bolt. Take your sear with the hook end facing towards the front of the bolt. Apply pressure downwards. And from here, I usually like to look through this hole in the back of the bolt. Make sure that that sear spring is sitting inside of the pocket. It's completely straight. Move your cocking lever, keeping pressure down on the sear. You're going to go ahead and take your accelerator stop lock and reinstall it. Coming in at an angle where this cut is facing forward on the bolt, you're going to hook that front part of the accelerator stop that we just installed. Go ahead, rotate it into place, press it down, and using your cocking lever right on that groove, you're going to push down all the way over to the side until that accelerator stop lock locks into the bolt. From there, we're going to reinstall the cocking lever. And you'll see on this that there's one large hump on the top and two on the bottom. When you install this, it's going to be the two smaller humps towards the bottom of the bolt with the cocking lever pointed towards the rear, like so. You'll take your cocking lever pin from the left side to the right. Get it started with this flat cut facing towards the top and the little protruding edge towards the bottom. Go ahead and align that with the hole of the cocking lever and press it into place until it's fully seated. From there, you're going to go ahead and take the cocking lever, push it all the way forward till it clicks. Make sure that it actually pulls your firing pin internally and is holding it on the sear. Once that's complete, I'll take your extractor at a 90-degree angle to the top of the bolt, insert it, let it fall down into place. Once that's complete, we're going to go ahead, we're going to put back together our barrel extension. So the first thing we're going to put in is going to be this breech lock. Now you'll see on this that there's a cut at the top and a beveled edge. Essentially, you want this U-shaped cut towards the top of the extension and the beveled edge facing towards the muzzle end. So we'll go in just like so, bevel cut on the front. Drops into place. You can go from the top or the bottom, it does not matter. Find the hole, take your smaller of the two spring pins, insert it. Make sure it's able to elevate and press under its own weight. Nothing's binding it. Next, we're going to put together our buffer housing. You'll take your accelerator, just like so, the two teeth pointed forward. Align it, take the larger of the spring pins, and install that. You want to make sure that it's at least flush on both sides. If it's sticking out on one end, it could bind going into the receiver. Once you have that in, we're going to install the actual buffer. Now you'll see on this ring of the buffer that there's a little block. This block aligns with this cut on the housing. So what you want to do is install it, and you'll see that this actual kind of arm right there is pointed upwards towards the top of the buffer housing. Installs, you might have to kind of play with it and jiggle it around a little bit, but it'll hit the point where that's able to fully seat forward inside of that groove. Next, we're going to attach this to the barrel extension. To do that, typically you hold it from the bottom, have 1 or 2 fingers on the accelerator, kind of lifting it up. We're going to align this so that these 2 arms on your buffer housing ride into these 2 grooves on your barrel extension. At the same time, we're going to have to compress or elevate this accelerator and ensure that this arm latches onto that buffer that we just installed. So it'll be like so. Have it at an angle, your accelerator is sitting upwards. All we're going to do is just drop that straight down, push in until the accelerator locks in. Once that's together, you'll take your bolt assembly. We're going to install it where these 2 ledges ride into these corresponding grooves on the barrel extension. Just like so. You want to make sure if you pick up on this that it doesn't just come straight off the extension, because that means it's not in correctly. Next, we're going to install the trigger bar. For this, spring will be towards the back end. What we're going to do is towards the right plate of the receiver, you're going to go ahead, while keeping it pressed upwards, install the trigger bar until it catches on the welded bracket inside. From there, you'll be able to push it in until this spring gets just below the top plate and inserts. From there, we'll take the pin. As you can see, there's an extra little lock on this that'll fit into the keyway slot on the left plate. You go ahead, insert the pin, and then you're going to kind of have to move the trigger bar around until it finally aligns the hole. You can press all the way in. From there, rotate counterclockwise, lock the pin into place. Next, we're going to reinstall the internals back into the gun. So to do this, you want to make sure that your buffer assembly is flush up against your barrel extension and that your bolt is approximately halfway back. You don't want it actually making contact with your accelerator because that'll start to separate your extension from the buffer housing. What you're going to do to install this is take the front end, simply set it on that bottom plate, insert it until the rear of the barrel extension makes contact, lift it up, press it the rest of the way in. Once you get to this point, you want to make sure that your cocking lever is forward and that it's going to go underneath the trigger bar. Go ahead, one hand on the back of the buffer, one on the bolt. You're going to push everything forward until that buffer locks, sticking out the back like this. From there, take your bolt stud, go ahead and locate where your bolt is inside of this cut. Align it with that circular hole, go in all the way, and then with the charging handle all the way forward, take just one finger behind it, push everything forward until that buffer fully locks into place. From there, you'll take your drive spring or your drive rod. There's a hole in the back of the bolt that end sits into. You're going to go ahead and insert it. While putting pressure, you're going to have to take this spring and push it in until this peg locks into the hole on the back of the receiver. Just like that is in place. From there, take your back plate assembly. Go ahead and get it started into the cuts on the back of the receiver. Pull out the lock, depress the latch, send it all the way back until it's flush and locked into place. From there, we're going to go ahead and install the barrel and get everything head spaced. Now we're going to move on to installing the barrel. To do this, take your barrel assembly, slide it into the barrel support, which is this part up front, until it makes contact with your barrel extension. Go ahead and start turning it clockwise. In a second here, you'll hear it start to click. Right there, that's that lock spring starting to engage the teeth on the back of the barrel. From there, just like before, you'll take your headspace adjustment tool, beveled edge towards the middle of the gun, insert that. We're going to go ahead and thread this barrel in all the way until it stops. All right, barrel is stopped. You want to make sure that these teeth are roughly flush right up against this block. Once the barrel's threaded in all the way, you're going to want to back it out 2 clicks. From there, we're going to go ahead and remove our adjustment tool. Close your top cover. We're going to cycle the gun just once. From there, we go into the headspace checks. So for that, we have the headspace tool, which has both a no-go and a go side. In order to adjust the headspace, you're going to want to raise the top cover, raise your extractor arm. You're going to pull back on the charging handle until this barrel extension comes back approximately a 1/16 of an inch. It's more just to take pressure off of it. From there, you're going to insert this gauge down into this T-slot or the bolt face. On the go side, it should drop in. This one does not. So since the go side does not enter, that means we have to back the barrel out again. So go ahead and reinstall the barrel adjustment tool. Install the tool. We're going to go ahead and back this out one click. Just like so. Remove the tool. Head, cycle the gun once more, just to make sure that the bolt is in its fully seated position after we've done the adjustments. And same thing, raise your extractor, take the go side, pull back approximately a 1/16 of an inch. You can see that the go gauge inserts all the way down the face of the bolt. From there, you'll flip the gauge over to the no-go side. You want to make sure that this gauge with firm pressure does not go into the bolt. Now we're going to move on to loading the M2-SLR. Before we begin, as you can see, these are dummy rounds. There's a hole in them. No primers, no powder, no nothing that's going to make these rounds go off. So when looking at the rounds, primarily at the links, you'll see there's a single loop side, a side with 2 loops. Whenever you're loading the M2-SLR, you want to make sure that you're going with the double looped end first into the gun. There's 2 ways to load the M2. First way is with the top cover closed. What you'll do is take the double looped end, you're going to push them in past these 2 belt holding paws until they click into place. Just like so. The other way you can load it is with the cover up. You just want to make sure that when you insert the double looped end, that it's just the first round past these belt holding paws. You do not want to load it all the way in. It can cause issues with the gun, make it jam, so on and so forth. Top cover closes. Once that's in, we're going to go ahead, charge the gun twice. From there, it's ready to fire. If for some reason you want to unload it with the belt still in, here's how you do that. You'll go ahead, unlock your top cover, raise it all the way up, take your extractor arm, lift that while holding onto the belt, pull these off, and you're going to want to go ahead, grab your charging handle, pull back, make sure no ammunition, last round falls out, chamber's clear. That concludes the walkthrough on the M2-SLR. If you have any questions, you can go to OOWinc.com or reach us at sales@OOWinc.com.